Have you ever stood in a room full of people, laughter echoing like a distant song, and still felt an unbearable silence pressing inside your chest? Have you ever scrolled through hundreds of contacts on your phone, searching for anyone to text, and still felt like a ghost drifting through a world of digital noise? If so, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're not alone. You're simply out of alignment with yourself. Carl Jung believed that true loneliness wasn't about the absence of others, but the absence of connection to one's own truth. And perhaps, just perhaps, that truth has been buried for so long beneath layers of expectations, approval seeking, and a mask you no longer remember putting on. This is not a video about how to make friends. It's a guide to return to yourself, because only from that place can real connection begin. You see, the modern world has taught us how to perform, not how to be. We've mastered the art of smiling when we're crumbling, of speaking when our voice trembles, of nodding in agreement just to belong. Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear in public. It's necessary to survive. But it's also the birthplace of emotional starvation when overused. Because every time you nod, instead of speak your truth, every time you betray your instinct to avoid confrontation, every time you cancel on yourself to please someone else, your shadow grows. And the shadow, Jung said, is not evil. It is simply everything within us that has been exiled. When friendships feel fragile, when you're constantly afraid of being too much or not enough, that's your shadow knocking. Whispering, "Will anyone ever love me for who I truly am?" But here's the paradox. You cannot be truly loved unless you are truly seen, and you cannot be seen while hiding. What if I told you that loneliness is a spiritual compass? That it's not a curse, but a call to return, to remember, to reintegrate. The ache you feel is sacred. It's your soul's rebellion against superficiality. It's yourself, not the ego, begging for reunion. Real friendships aren't built on common interests. They are built on common truths, on shared silence, on sacred mirroring. Jung called this the process of individuation, the courageous journey of becoming who you truly are, not who the world taught you to be. And as terrifying as it may sound, this journey often begins alone. Alone in your room, asking questions no one wants to hear. Alone in your doubt, peeling off the persona layer by layer. Alone in the fire of transformation where the false self burns and the real self rises, not loud, not proud, but quietly sovereign. You must understand the world doesn't need more polished personas. It needs more souls who have met themselves in the dark and returned with light. That's who people are truly drawn to, not charisma, not power, but presence. When you sit with a friend who allows your silence to breathe, when you find someone who listens not to fix you, but to feel you keep them. That's not chemistry. That's psychological safety. That's rare. That's real. But first, you must offer it to yourself. You must learn to sit with your own pain without distraction, your own voice, without filters, your own joy, without guilt. Then, and only then, will you begin to attract friendships not built on convenience, but on resonance. So here's a question. What part of you have you abandoned just to be liked? And what would happen, what might awaken, if you dared to bring that part back into the light? And maybe the loneliness isn't a punishment, it's a purification. Jung taught us that wholeness is not achieved by cutting off what is unwanted, but by embracing it. So let me ask you again, what if your emptiness is sacred? What if it's not a hole, but a doorway? When you begin to walk the path of individuation, everything changes. You start to notice the people who only call when they need something. You begin to feel the energetic weight of conversations that drain you, not nourish you. And slowly the mask begins to slip. Not because you're trying to rebel, but because you're too tired to pretend. And in that exhaustion, a strange kind of clarity is born. A quiet defiance. You realize that a life spent fitting in is far lonelier than a life spent standing out. That being alone in your truth is far more peaceful than being surrounded in your falseness. Let's talk about the shadow again. It's not some dark, demonic part of you. It's your unmet needs, your suppressed rage, your forgotten creativity, your stifled sensuality, your swallowed tears. It's the 8-year-old you who learned that being too loud made people leave. It's the teenager who was mocked for dreaming too big. It's the adult you who keeps settling in relationships that feel safe, but not soulful. Jung warned us that the longer we avoid the shadow, the more we project it onto others. That's why you may resent a friend who takes up space because your own voice has been silenced too long. That's why you might envy someone's joy because you've forgotten how to feel your own. The cure isn't cutting them out. The cure is calling yourself back in. In the age of curated images and online connections, loneliness is no longer the exception. It's the epidemic. But let me remind you, loneliness is not the absence of people. It's the absence of authenticity. So many of us have been loved for the version of ourselves we perform, that we start to believe it's the only way to be accepted. But true belonging doesn't require assimilation. It requires revelation. Revealing your shadow, your fear, your pain, your dreams. That's terrifying. But it's also magnetic. People aren't drawn to your perfection. They're drawn to your vulnerability, your courage, to speak what most keep hidden. That's how kindred souls find each other, not in loud parties or big crowds, but in quiet moments of "I thought I was the only one." Let me tell you a secret. The most nourishing friendships aren't the ones that entertain you. They're the ones that mirror you. The ones that say, "I see your pain. I hold your joy. I accept your complexity." And if you haven't found that yet, don't panic. It begins with you. Become that mirror for yourself. Sit with your sorrow like an old friend. Laugh with your awkwardness like a child who forgot to be ashamed. Touch your truth with tenderness. When you become safe within yourself, your presence becomes a safe haven for others. That's when the real ones come. Because friendship in the Jungian sense is not just emotional, it's archetypal. It's soul meeting soul past the masks, past the roles, past the ego. It's the kind of connection where time dissolves, where you meet someone and it feels like remembering, not discovering. You won't find this in every corner. You might go through seasons where no one gets you. That's not failure. That's the wilderness. And in the wilderness, you meet yourself. You meet yourself, capital S. The part of you that is eternal, unshakable, divinely human. Hold on. Because that sacred solitude carves out space for sacred connection. The kind that doesn't need daily text to feel bonded. The kind that doesn't shatter at silence. The kind that sits beside you in the dark, not trying to fix the light, just keeping you company until the sun returns. And maybe the point was never to find people who complete you. Maybe it's about finding people who meet you in your wholeness, who join your journey not to rescue, but to reflect. That is the beauty of Jung's vision. He didn't promise us happiness. He promised us wholeness. And wholeness includes contradiction, shadow, solitude, sorrow, joy, rage, and grace. So if today you feel like nobody sees you, maybe it's time to ask, have I shown up as myself or just as my persona? And if the answer shakes, you don't run. That's your awakening. Then comes the second descent. The first was into loneliness. The second is into truth. They are not the same. The first wounds. The second heals. But the second is harder because it asks you to dismantle every story you've told yourself about who you need to be loved. Jung described this as the confrontation with the self, not the ego's idea of self, the curated, filtered, socialized mask, but the deep self, the original blueprint before the world told you what was acceptable. And it is here, in the rawness of this mirror, that you realize something terrifying. Many of the relationships you've built were not with you, but with the mask you wore. You begin to see why you feel disconnected even while surrounded, why you laugh but feel hollow, why you give so much and still feel unseen. They don't know you because you have never been allowed to show up. There is a quiet devastation in that realization, but also a liberation. Because if people only loved the mask, then losing them is not a loss of intimacy. It's a shedding of illusion, and it makes room for something real. The shadow often carries the keys to this realness. It holds your forgotten voice, your hidden desires, your untold truths. To reclaim yourself, you must learn to speak from the place you've been most afraid of. This might look like telling a friend I feel unseen in this relationship. It might look like saying I'm jealous, and I hate that I am, but I need to admit it. It might look like sitting with someone in silence, holding them, not fixing, not analyzing, just being. And when you do this, something remarkable happens. The foundation shifts. You stop needing to perform to be loved. And in that space, love finally begins. We live in a culture obsessed with performance. Performance. At work. Performance. In relationships. Even performance in healing. We want to fix ourselves, fast, optimize every part of our day, measure our friendships by how often they text back. But Jung warned that true growth is not linear. The unconscious doesn't operate on a schedule. Friendship is not about optimization. It is not about metrics. It is about presence, depth, shared myth. Have you noticed? The people you cherish the most often aren't the ones who said all the right things. They're the ones who stayed, the ones who showed up when it was inconvenient, the ones who remembered your pain and didn't try to make it disappear, but just said, I'm not leaving. Jung believed that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. That's what a soul friend does. They don't just offer company. They offer transformation. But again, this begins within. If you want more authentic relationships, ask yourself, when was the last time I was authentic with me? Do I sit with my fears or scroll past them? Do I tell myself the truth or only the parts that are convenient? There is a strange truth in this journey. The more real you become, the fewer people will surround you, but the deeper the bond will be. You'll start to attract those who recognize your frequency, not your job title, not your looks, not your status, but your vibration, yourself. And you'll notice the ones who truly love you will not be afraid of your tears. They will not be afraid of your anger, your confusion, your silence, because they've made peace with their own. That's the secret no one talks about. You attract what you've made peace with. Heal your relationship with your loneliness, and you'll stop attracting distractions. Heal your relationship with your sadness, and you'll stop chasing joy as a performance. Heal your relationship with your truth, and you'll stop needing people to validate it. This is how individuation ripples out. First, you reclaim yourself. Then you become a lighthouse for others. You'll be the one who says it's okay to be broken here. It's okay to be whole. Just be real. You'll find yourself having fewer but deeper conversations. Less performance, more presence. Less, what do you do? And more, what haunts you. And you'll start to recognize soul kin. Not through words, but through energy. The way their eyes soften when you speak. The way their silence feels safe. The way you laugh and cry in the same breath. These are not common, but they are possible. And here's the miracle. The more you honor yourself, the more you'll realize you were never truly alone. You just hadn't yet arrived to where your people were waiting. So let's arrive together just for a moment here now. Let the noise fall away. Let the metrics disappear. No followers, no titles, no expectations. Just you breathing, remembering. You were not born to fit in. You were born to become. And the becoming is messy. It hurts. It requires loss. The kind of loss that clears the stage so the real characters can enter. That is what Jung meant when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But few tell you this becoming who you truly are might cost you everything you once called connection. The group chats that no longer feel real. The friends who laugh but don't listen. The ones who love the mask but not the soul underneath. Let them go. Not with hatred, but with honor. Thank them silently for the part they played in your story. And walk forward not bitter, but clear. Because true friendship is not found in numbers. It's found in depth, in presence, in the silence between words, in the sacred, awkward human moments where two souls say without needing to speak, "I see you. I hold you. I don't need you to be anything but you." This is not a video about fixing loneliness. It is a ritual of remembrance, a call to arms, not to fight others, but to return to the parts of yourself you exiled long ago in exchange for love that was never real. Ask yourself now gently, what if the real loneliness is not that others don't see me, but that I stopped showing myself long ago? And if you're brave enough to sit with that question, not rush it, not numb it, just breathe with it, then you've already begun. You are not alone. There are others walking this road, not the loudest, not the flashiest, but they're here, building lives with honesty, loving with open wounds, creating friendships not of convenience, but of devotion. They will find you, but only if you show up first. And so I leave you with this. What mask are you ready to take off today? What shadow are you finally ready to welcome home? What would it feel like to be loved, not for your persona, but for your essence? Leave your answer in the comments. Not for me, for you. Let this be your first whisper of truth. Let this be the first time you stop hiding, because the world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more real ones. And if you're still here, you are one of them.